안녕하세요. 벌써 들어오셨네요. How are you today? Did you have a good day? 잘 들리시나요? How was your day today? 안녕하세요. 지니 사장님 안녕하세요. 잘 들려요? Okay, good. 제가 그냥 네. 세진 hello. 네. 나연 선생님. 오늘 하루도 잘 보내셨어요? Very good. 좋습니다. Alright, 읽어볼게요. 질문 있으시면 알려주시고. Chapter 24. It was now the 8th day since my crash landing in the desert, and I'd listened to the story about the sales clerk as I was drinking the last drop of my water supply. Ah, I said to the little prince, your memories are very pleasant, but I haven't yet repaired my plane. I've nothing left to drink, and I too would be glad to walk very slowly toward a water fountain. 네, 임장구님, 안녕하세요. 우리 여기 인스타도 한번 켜볼까요? 잠시만요. Alright. 여기서, hold on. No, that's okay. My friend the fox told me, little fellow, this has nothing to do with a fox. Why? Because we're going to die of thirst. 알림이 안 왔어요? 그렇군요. 네. 왜 그런지 모르겠네요. 그러면은 여기서 다시 죄송해요. 여기서 잠깐 그거를 하고 해야 되겠어요. Alright. 네, 죄송해요. 세진인가 보다. Hello, 세진. Or is it 세연? 네. Alright. 안녕하세요. 오늘 어린 왕자 마지막입니다. 드디어 끝납니다. 네, 여기서 들으셔도 되고 우리 유튜브에서 보셔도 되고요. 네. 네, I'm going to continue now. Alright. Because we're going to die of thirst. The little prince didn't follow my reasoning and answered me. It's good to have had a friend even if you're going to die. Myself, I'm very glad to have had a fox for a friend. 네, 여기서 have had 이 발음을 어떻게 했나요? 발음이 아니라 이제 속도를 그냥 it's good to have had a friend 이렇게 하면 이게 좀 안 좋죠. 네, 이거를 it's good to have had a friend 이렇게 갔죠. good to have had a 이렇게 빨리 가야 돼요. 여기를 배힘 주시고. He doesn't realize the danger, I said to myself. He's never hungry or thirsty. A little sunlight is enough for him. 네, 여기서 reasoning 이게 삼음절인데 reasoning 이렇게 가지 않았고 reasoning 이렇게 갔어요. But the little prince looked at me and answered my thought. I'm thirsty too. Let's find a well. 네, 우물을 찾자고 했죠. I made an exasperated gesture. It is absurd looking for a well at random in the vastness of the desert. But even so, we started walking. 네, even so 여기서는 네, 그래도 우리는 계속 사막에서 그걸 찾는 건 너무 웃기지만 계속 걸어갔다는 거죠. 안녕하세요. 네, 유튜브에서도 보실 수 있습니다. All right, when we had walked for several hours in silence, night fell, and stars began to appear. 네, 밤이 왔다. 이 표현을 어떻게 했죠? 이 말을 그냥 night came 이게 아니라 night fell. 네, 밤이 떨어졌다. 이렇게 표현을 했네요. I noticed them as in a dream, being somewhat feverish on account of my thirst. 네, 뭐뭐 때문에 이 표현을 on account of 이렇게 표현을 했죠. The little prince's words danced in my memory. 네, 기억을 memory 이렇게 하질 않았고 memory 거의 이음절처럼 했어요. memory 이렇게요. So you're thirsty too? I asked. But he didn't answer my question. He merely said to me, water can also be good for the heart. I didn't understand his answer, but I said nothing. I knew by this time that it was no use questioning him. 네, 여기서 소용없다라는 말을 no use 이렇게 말을 했죠. He was tired. He sat down. I sat down next to him. And after a silence, he spoke again. The stars are beautiful because of a flower you don't see. I answered, yes, of course. And without speaking another word, I stared at the ridges of sand in the moonlight. 네, 여기서 ridge라는 말은 네, 제가 찾아봤어요. 이게 한국말로 몰라서 산등성이처럼 길쭉하게 네, 이렇게 길쭉하게 이렇게 나온 부분이에요. All right, the desert is beautiful, the little prince added. And it was true. I've always loved the desert. You sit down on a sand dune. You see nothing. You hear nothing. And yet something shines. Something sings in that silence. What makes the desert beautiful, the little prince said, is that it hides a well somewhere. 네, 사막을 아름답게 하는 건 어디인가에 우물을 숨기기 때문이다. 이렇게 얘기를 했죠. I was surprised by suddenly understanding that mysterious radiance of the sands. When I was a little boy, I lived in an old house, and there was a legend that a treasure was buried in it somewhere. Of course, no one was ever able to find the treasure. Perhaps no one even searched. But it cast a spell over that whole house. My house hid a secret in the depths of its heart. 네, 여기 어려운 발음이 나왔네요. depths 이렇게 가야 돼요. depths 이렇게 가야 돼요. depths 이렇게 가면 절대로 안 되겠죠. cast a spell 이 말을 요술을 걸다. 네, 라는 뜻입니다. searched 이 발음도 searched 이게 아니라 searched 이거예요. 네, 진희세상님 해석 좋다고 해주셔서 감사합니다. 네. All right. Yes, I said to the little prince, whether it's a house or the stars or the desert, what makes them beautiful is invisible. I'm glad, he said, you agree with my fox. As the little prince was falling asleep, I picked him up in my arms and started walking again. I was moved. move라는 뜻은 네, 움직이다라는 뜻이지만 여기서 I was moved 하는 거는 감동받았다 이런 뜻이죠. 네, love to 우님 감사합니다. 네, 지금 유튜브로 들어오실 수도 있어요. 네. Okay. It was as if I was carrying a fragile treasure. 여기를 되게 그냥 it was as if I was carrying a fragile treasure 이렇게 하지 않았고 쭉 되게 빨리 갔죠. It was as if I was carrying a fragile treasure. 여기 중요한 단어 fragile treasure 왔으니까 여기서 천천히 했어요. 그리고 여기서 뭘 읽으실 때 영어는 호흡이 끊기지 않게 해주셔야 돼요. It was 이렇게 하면 이게 호흡이 계속 끊기잖아요, 공기가. 근데 다시 들어보세요. It was as if I was carrying a fragile treasure. 네, treasure 하고 끝났는데도 treasure 이렇게 끝나지 않고 treasure 열고 끝났어요. Okay? 아, 감사합니다. 유튜브 있는지 네, 감사합니다. 네. All right. By the light of the moon, I gazed at that pale forehead, those closed eyes, those locks of hair trembling in the wind, and I said to myself, what I'm looking at is only a shell. What's most important is invisible. 네, shell는 조개 껍질이기도 하지만 여기서는 그냥 껍질, 껍데기, 바깥 이걸 얘기를 해요. As his lips parted in a half smile, I said to myself again, what moves me so deeply about the sleeping little prince is his loyalty to a flower. The image of a rose shining within him like the flame within a lamp, even when he's asleep. And I realized he was even more fragile than I had thought. Lamps must be protected. A gust of wind can blow them out. And walking on like that, I found the well at daybreak. 네, loyalty, 이거는 충실, 이런 뜻인데, 여기서 L 발음을 제대로 안 하면 royalty, R 발음은 royalty 이렇게 되면 이게 왕족이 되기 때문에 완전히 헷갈리겠죠. 아, 네, 한수아님 안녕하세요. 감사합니다. count가 count인가요? count. 아니요, t로 끝나기 때문에 그냥 짧게 count 이렇게 갈 거예요. count 이렇게 길게 하지 않을 거고요. 그냥 count 이렇게 하시면 되고요. 책 뭐면 너무 좋아요. 뭐면 너무가 뭘까요? 너무너무 이 말을 하시려고 했던 것 같아요. 맞나요? 감사합니다. 여기서도 많이 마이크 뭔지 마이크 멋있어 보이죠? 네, 이게 제가 조금 큰 맘 먹고 blue 이렇게 생겼어요. 네. 소리가 네, 지금 인스타로는 이 마이크를 사용하는 건 아닌데 유튜브로는 이걸로 사용해서 네, 소리가 좋죠? 네, 좋을 거예요. It better be good. 네. 안 좋으면 안 돼요. 이거 한 18만 원 이렇게 줬던 것 같아요. Alright, chapter 아니야, 마지막. And walking on like that, I found the well at daybreak. 네, 이제 딱 이제 밤이 끝나고 낮이 되니까 아침이 되니까 우물을 찾았대요. 네. 같이 들으니. 감사합니다. 네. Chapter 25. The little prince said, people start out in express trains, but they no longer know what they're looking for. Then they get all excited and rush around in circles. And he added, it's not worth the trouble. The well we had come to was not at all like the wells of the Sahara. The wells of the Sahara are no more than holes dug in the sand. This one looked more like a village well, but there was no village here, and I thought I was dreaming. 네, 여기서 사하라 이게 아니라 Sahara 이렇게 했죠. 그 다음에 빌리지 이게 아니라 village로 갈 거예요. It's strange, I said to the little prince. Everything is ready. The pulley, the bucket, and the rope. He laughed, grasped the rope, and set the pulley working. And the pulley groaned the way an old weather vane groans when the wind has been asleep a long time. Hear that? Said the little prince. We've awakened this well and it's singing. 네, pulley는 네, 제가 찾아봤어요. 한국말로 무슨 뜻인지. 도르래래요. 도르래. 네, 여기서 grasped 이거를 한국말로 이렇게 표현을 하자면 grasped 오음절이 될 것 같아요. 근데 이거는 grasped 이름절이에요. 되게 어렵죠. 네. Any questions so far? All right. Hear that? Said the little prince. We've awakened this well and it's singing. 네, 우물이 노래하고 있대요. I didn't want him to tire himself out. 네. Let me do that, I said to him. It's too heavy for you. 내가 할게. 네, 우물에서 물 퍼는 거. 너한테 너무 무거워. Slowly, I hoisted the bucket to the edge of the well. I set it down with great care. The song of the pulley continued in my ears, and I saw the sun glisten on the still trembling water. 네, 여기서 hoisted 이렇게 말을 했어요. 네, 들어 올리다를 라는 뜻인데 그냥 I pulled the bucket 이거보다 hoist를 하면 조금 이렇게 힘들게 이렇게 확 네, 조금 느낌이 더 좀 달라요. 아무튼 그다음에 put it down이라고 안 했고 set it down 되게 살살 놨다는 얘기죠. The song of the pulley continued in my ears, and I saw the sun glisten on the still trembling water. I'm thirsty for that water, said the little prince. Let me drink some. And I understood what he'd been looking for. 네, 여기서 he had been looking for 이거를 줄임말로 he'd been looking for 이렇게 했는데 여기에서 진짜 배에 힘을 안 주시면 he'd been 이렇게 되든지 아니면 he'd been D가 안 들릴 수가 있어요. 그래서 여기를 he'd been he 들리시죠 이게 이거는 공기가 엄청 많이 나오고 있는데 배의 힘으로 공기가 엄청 나오고 있는데 혀의 힘으로 혀가 그냥 이렇게 딱 닿으니까 he 이렇게 닫히는 소리인 거죠. 근데 공기가 안 나오고 있으면 많이 안 나오고 있으면 혀가 이렇게 닿아도 그 소리가 안 들리니까 조심하셔야 돼요. 쓰러져서 듣고 있어요. 네. 피곤하면 가서 주무세요. 네. All right. I raised the bucket to his lips. He drank eyes closed. It was as sweet as a feast. 네, 여기를 it was 이거를 그냥 빨리 지나가서 it was as t를 소리를 안 냈어요. It was as sweet 이렇게 갔어요. That water was more than merely a drink. It was born of our walk beneath the stars, of the song of the pulley, of the effort of my arms. It did the heart good, like a present. When I was a little boy, the Christmas tree lights, the music of midnight mass, the tenderness of people's smiles made up in the same way the whole radiance of the Christmas present I received. People where you live, the little prince said, grow 5,000 roses in one garden, yet they don't find what they're looking for. They don't find it, I answered. And yet, what they're looking for could be found in a single rose or a little water. Of course, I answered. And the little prince added, but eyes are blind. You have to look with the heart. 내 마음으로 봐야 된다 그러죠? I had drunk the water. I could breathe easy now. The sand at daybreak is honey-colored, and that color was making me happy too. Why then did I also feel so sad? You must keep your promise, said the little prince sitting up beside me. 네, 여기서 keep하고 your를 어떻게 연결을 했죠? 여기를 keep your로 했어요. Okay? What promise? You know, a muzzle for my sheep. I'm responsible for this flower. 네, muzzle는 입마개. 처음에 우리 시작했을 때 입마개를 그려주기로 했었죠. I took my drawings out of my pocket. The little prince glanced at them and laughed as he said, Your baobabs look more like cabbages. Oh, I had been so proud of the baobabs. Your fox, his ears look more like horns, and they're too long. And he laughed again. 네, 우리 주인공의 그림을 되게 놀리는 거예요. You're being unfair, my little prince, I said. I never knew how to draw anything but boas from the inside and boas from the outside. 놀려서 야, 나 원래 그림 잘 못 그려. 뱀밖에 못 그렸어. 아니, 배가 아니라 맞죠. 뱀, boa. Oh, that'll be all right, he said. Children understand. So then I drew a muzzle, and with a heavy heart, I handed it to him. 네, 무거운 마음으로 그림 그린 거를 줬어요. 입마개. You've made plans I don't know about. But he didn't answer. He said, You know, my fall to earth, tomorrow will be the first anniversary. Then after a silence, he continued, I landed very near here, and he blushed. And once again, without understanding why, I felt a strange grief. 네, 여기서 strange도 이름절이에요. strange strange 이렇게 하시면 안 되고 strange grief 연결할 거예요. However, a question occurred to me. Then it wasn't by accident that on the morning I met you 8 days ago, you were walking that way all alone, 1,000 miles from any inhabited region? Were you returning to the place where you fell to earth? The little prince blushed again. And I added, hesitantly, perhaps on account of the anniversary? The little prince blushed once more. He never answered questions, but when someone blushes, doesn't that mean yes? blush는 이제 얼굴이 빨개지는 거죠. 오케이, 임장군님 가서 주무세요. 우리 학생 세진인가? 네, 세진이 가서 자세요. All right. The little prince. 네, 이렇게 blush는 이제 얼굴이 빨개졌다는 거죠. He said to the little prince, I'm afraid. 네, I'm afraid는 난 무섭다 이런 뜻이 아니라 뭐뭐 해야 될 것 같아 이런 뜻이에요. 나 미안하지만 이렇게 해야 될 것 같아 이런 뜻이에요. 네. But he answered, You must get to work now. You must get back to your engine. I'll wait here. Come back tomorrow night. But I wasn't reassured. I remembered the fox. You risk tears if you let yourself be tamed. 네, tamed는 길들여진이란 뜻이죠. 안녕하세요, 이미사님. 맞나요? 오케이. Alright. 네, 우리 어린 왕자 읽고 있습니다. Chapter 26. Now we have 2 chapters left. Beside the well, there was a ruin, an old stone wall. When I came back from my work the next evening, I caught sight of my little prince from a distance. He was sitting on top of the wall, legs dangling, and I heard him talking. Don't you remember? He was saying. This isn't exactly the place. Another voice must have answered him then, for he replied, Oh, yes, it's the right day, but this isn't the place. I continued walking toward the wall. I still could neither see nor hear anyone, yet the little prince answered again. Of course, you'll see where my tracks begin on the sand. Just wait for me there. I'll be there tonight. I was 20 yards from the wall and still saw no one. 네, yard는 우리 미국식의 재는, 길이 재는 건데요. 네, 0.91 메타 정도 됩니다. 1 yard가. Then the little prince said after a silence, Your poison is good? You're sure it won't make me suffer long? 네, 독이죠. I stopped short, my heart pounding, but I still didn't understand. Now go away, the little prince said. I want to get down from here. Then I looked down toward the foot of the wall and gave a great start. There, coiled in front of the little prince, was one of those yellow snakes that can kill you in 30 seconds. As I dug into my pocket for my revolver, I stepped back, but at the noise I made, the snake flowed over the sand like a trickling fountain, and without even hurrying, slipped away between the stones with a faint metallic sound. 네, 주인공 목소리를 듣고 빨리도 아닌 그냥 천천히 느긋하게 도망갔대요. revolver는 권총이에요. I reached the wall just in time to catch my little prince in my arms, his face white as snow. What's going on here? You're talking to snakes now? 뱀이랑 얘기하는 거야, 지금? I had loosened the yellow scarf he always wore. I had moistened his temples and made him drink some water. moist는 촉촉하다 이런 뜻인데 moistened 여기에 T 소리가 안 나죠. 그래서 temple는 여기 관자놀이를 얘기를 하는 거고요. 그래서 여기를 적시고 물을 마시게 했대요. And now I didn't dare ask him anything more. He gazed at me with a serious expression and put his arms round my neck. I felt his heart beating like a dying bird's when it's been shot. He said to me, I'm glad you found what was the matter with your engine. Now you'll be able to fly again. How did you know? I was just coming to tell him that I had been successful beyond all hope. He didn't answer my question. All he said was, I'm leaving today too. And then sadly, it's much further, it's much more difficult. 이제 어린 왕자도 이제 떠난다고 얘기를 했어요. I realized that something extraordinary was happening. I was holding him in my arms like a little child, yet it seemed to me that he was dropping headlong into an abyss, and I could do nothing to hold him back. His expression was very serious now, lost and remote. I have your sheep, and I have the crate for it, and the muzzle, and he smiled sadly. I waited a long time. I could feel that he was reviving a little. Little fellow, you are frightened. Of course he was frightened. But he laughed a little. I'll be much more frightened tonight. Once again, I felt chilled by the sense of something irreparable. And I realized I couldn't bear the thought of never hearing that laugh again. For me, it was like a spring of fresh water in the desert. Little fellow, I want to hear you laugh again. But he said to me, tonight it'll be a year. My star will be just above the place where I fell last year. Little fellow, it's a bad dream, isn't it? All this conversation with the snake and the meeting place and the star? But he didn't answer my question. All he said was, the important thing is what can't be seen. 볼 수 없는 거가 중요해요. Of course. It's the same as for the flower. If you love a flower that lives on a star, then it's good at night to look up at the sky. All the stars are blossoming. Of course. It's the same for the water. The water you gave me to drink was like music on account of the pulley and the rope. You remember, it was good. Of course. At night, you'll look up at the stars. It's too small where I live for me to show you where my star is. It's better that way. My star will be one of the stars for you. So you'll like looking at all of them. They'll all be your friends. And besides, I have a present for you. He laughed again. Ah, little fellow, I love hearing that laugh. That'll be my present. Just that. It'll be the same as for the water. What do you mean? People have stars, but they aren't the same. For travelers, the stars are guides. For other people, they're nothing but tiny lights. And for still others, for scholars, they're problems. For my businessman, they were gold. But all those stars are silent stars. You, though, you'll have stars like nobody else. 뽀시르기님, 안녕하세요. What do you mean? When you look up at the sky at night, since I'll be living on one of them, since I'll be laughing on one of them, for you it'll be as if all the stars are laughing. You'll have stars that can laugh. And he laughed again. And when you're consoled, everyone eventually is consoled. 네, consoled는 위로받다죠. You'll be glad you've known me. You'll always be my friend. You'll feel like laughing with me. And you'll open your window sometimes just for the fun of it. And your friends will be amazed to see you laughing while you're looking up at the sky. Then you'll tell them, yes, it's the stars. They always make me laugh. And they'll think you're crazy. It'll be a nasty trick I played on you. And he laughed again. 네, 여기서 laughed again을 laughed again으로 했죠. And it'll be as if I had given you, instead of stars, a lot of tiny bells that know how to laugh. And he laughed again. Then he grew serious once more. Tonight, don't come. I won't leave you. It'll look as if I'm suffering. It'll look a little as if I'm dying. 내가 괴로운 것처럼 보일 거고 내가 죽는 것처럼 보일 수도 있어. It'll look that way. Don't come to see that. 그렇게 보지 마. It's not worth the trouble. I won't leave you. 나 안 떠날 거야. But he was anxious. I'm telling you this on account of the snake. He mustn't bite you. Snakes are nasty sometimes. They bite just for the fun. They bite just for fun. I won't leave you. But something reassured him. It's true they don't have enough poison for a second bite. That night, I didn't see him leave. He got away without making a sound. When I managed to catch up with him, he was walking fast with determination. All he said was, "Ah, you're here," and he took my hand. 네, catch up, 여기를 catch up 이렇게 연결을 했죠. But he was still anxious. You were wrong to come. You'll suffer. I'll look as if I'm dead, and that won't be true. 내가 죽은 것처럼 보이지만 사실이 아닐 거야. I said nothing. You understand, it's too far. I can't take this body with me. It's too heavy. I said nothing. But it'll be like an old abandoned shell. There's nothing sad about an old shell. I said nothing. He was a little disheartened now, but he made one more effort. Disheartened. 네, heart가 여기 들어가 있죠. heart는 심장 혹은 마음이란 뜻인데 disheartened라니까 낙심했다 이런 뜻이에요. It'll be nice, you know. I'll be looking at the stars too. All the stars will be wells with a rusty pulley. All the stars will pour out water for me to drink. I said nothing. And it'll be fun. You'll have 500 million little bells. I'll have 500 million springs of fresh water. And he too said nothing because he was weeping. Here's the place. Let me go on alone. And he sat down because he was frightened. Then he said, You know, my flower, I'm responsible for her. And she's so weak and so naive. She has 4 ridiculous thorns to defend her against the world. I sat down too because I was unable to stand any longer. He said, There, that's all. He hesitated a little longer, then he stood up. He took a step. I couldn't move. There had been nothing but a yellow flash close to his ankle. He remained motionless for an instant. He didn't cry out. He fell gently the way a tree falls. There wasn't even a sound because of the sand. 네, 어떻게 된 거죠? ankle, yellow flash, 노란 반짝임이 있었죠. ankle, 발목에. 네, 노란 뱀이 와서 물었어요. Any questions so far? We're on the last chapter now. 여러분, 여기 계신 분들, 우리 다음에는 뭘 하면 좋을지, 이렇게 긴 책 하면 좋을지, 아니면 짧은 책들을 하면 좋을지, if you have an opinion, please let me know. 네, 생각 있으시면 네, 적어주세요. Last chapter, chapter 27. And now, of course, it's been 6 years already. I've never told this story before. 6년이 됐어요. The friends who saw me again were very glad to see me alive. I was sad, but I told them it's fatigue. 네, 여기를 어떻게 했나요? fatigue 이렇게 하지 않았고 강세가 T에 있으니까 fatigue 이렇게 갔죠. fatigue 이게 아니에요. Now I'm somewhat consoled. That is not entirely. 네, 6년이 됐는데 somewhat 어느 정도는 위안이 돼 있지만 하지만 완전히는 아니라는 거예요. But I know he did get back to his planet because at daybreak I didn't find his body. 네, 다시 돌아갔다는 걸 알 수 있었어요. 어떻게? 몸을 볼 수가 없었기 때문에. It wasn't such a heavy body, and at night I love listening to the stars. It's like 500 million little bells. But something extraordinary has happened. When I drew that muzzle for the little prince, I forgot to put in the leather strap. He could never have fastened it on his sheep. And then I wonder, what's happened there on his planet? Maybe the sheep has eaten the flour? Sometimes I tell myself, of course not. The little prince puts his flour under glass, and he keeps close watch over his sheep. Then I'm happy, and all the stars laugh sweetly. Sometimes I tell myself, anyone might be distracted once in a while, and that's all it takes. One night he forgot to put her under glass, or else the sheep got out without making any noise during the night. Then the bells are all changed into tears. 네, 엄청 걱정을 하는 거예요. 이 장미가 어떻게 됐을까 하고. It's all a great mystery for you who love the little prince too. As for me, nothing in the universe can be the same if somewhere, no one knows where, a sheep we never saw has or has not eaten a rose. Look up at the sky. Ask yourself, has the sheep eaten the flower or not? And you'll see how everything changes. And no grown-up will ever understand how such a thing could be so important. 네, 끝입니다. 여기 마지막에 또 있어요. 이렇게 조금 있는데 요것도 읽어드릴게요. What is this? For me, this is the loveliest and the saddest landscape in the world. It's the same landscape as the one on the preceding page, but I've drawn it one more time in order to be sure you see it clearly. It's here that the little prince appeared on earth, then disappeared. Look at this landscape carefully to be sure of recognizing it if you should travel to Africa someday in the desert. And if you happen to pass by here, I beg you not to hurry past. Wait a little, just under the star. Then if a child comes to you, if he laughs, if he has golden hair, if he doesn't answer your questions, you'll realize who he is. If this should happen, be kind. Don't let me go on being so sad. Send word immediately that he's come back. 네. 그 아이를 다시 보게 되면 꼭 자기한테, 주인공한테 알려달래요. 자기 더 이상 슬퍼하지 않게. Alright, 수고하셨습니다. 우리 다음 주에는 노래를 할까요? 네. 한번 제가 생각해보고 우리 또 여기에서 감사합니다. 도움이 되셨으면 기쁩니다. 네, 다음 주에는 또 뭐 할지 저도 한번 고민을 해볼게요. 노래 좋아요? 오케이. 노래 어떤 거 좋은지, 오래된 노래가 좋으신가요, 여러분? 뭐가 좋으신지 여기 한번 알려주세요. 감사합니다. Antoine de Saint, 저도 몰라요. 프렌치를 안 배워가지고 제가 고등학교 때 스페니쉬를 배워가지고요. Antoine de Saint, 뭐 이렇게 막 콧소리를 내더라고요. Alright. 네, 의견들 있으시면 알려주세요. Good night, everybody. 좋은 밤 되세요.